Hi everyone, good morning. I'm Todd Nauck. Welcome to my YouTube art live stream. So we're continuing the Post-it pop art series here during this COVID-19 season. I think this starts week 5 of the Post-it pop art COVID-19 stay-at-home order Post-it. So we're going to try drawing Optimus Prime here on a blue Post-it. He's got that blue helmet. I thought a blue Post-it might work well. Kind of got a little bit of a lighter shade of blue because of his silver face. So I didn't want the too dark of a blue. Let me try that line again. So, in fact, I might even utilize my little Optimus Prime figurine here to kind of study the shapes of his face, his helmet here. I haven't drawn a lot of Transformer characters in my past. I think I've done a Bumblebee Post-it years ago. I've done a Starscream commission, but I haven't drawn a lot of Transformers. I used to draw them a lot when Transformers were like new, when I was like 13 years old. I used to draw and make up my own Transformers when I was in junior high. But lately, just have not drawn a lot of Transformers, so this will be a fun challenge. So glad you're here. Feel free to draw along with me. You don't have to draw on a Post-it note. Draw on whatever paper you have at your disposal, sketchbook, notepad, whatever you got, and use whatever tools you have. I'll let you know the tools I'm using, but use whatever tools you have, whatever pencils, pens, crayons, watercolor, markers of any brand. Go for it, because what we're looking to do here today and every day is just have some fun. So let's flip the camera around. Let's get to drawing. Here we go. It's always awkward changing the camera angle here. Flipping the phone around. I'm working on my iPhone. So I'm streaming from, and I have just one of those little gooseneck clamps you can find on Amazon. A friend of mine gave me one that has a light here on it, so I can have even better lighting for my live streams. So here we go. So glad y'all are here. Welcome, 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 welcome. So let's start in on this. So still going to start with my kind of circular skull sort of shape because Optimus Prime does have a human, or at least humanoid-like face. Eyes, nose, ears, etc. Gonna have my Prime kind of looking off to the side. You know, he has a jaw and chin. He doesn't have a mouth, and he's got more of this kind of face shield. So I'm going to kind of break him down as I would similarly if I were drawing a traditional human or organic character. But I'm keeping in mind we have a lot of roboticness that is a bit more inorganic. So a lot of different shapes here to build his helmet and actual face here. A lot of very, I'd say almost inorganic shapes. So he's got this kind of, this bill or ledge, you know, like the bill of a cap, kind of at the front of his helmet here. And then he's got this I don't even know what you'd call it, kind of like a centurion centerpiece here. I don't even know what would be a good term for this part here. So it's kind of like this almost diamond-shaped or oddly shaped hexagon. You know, more squat at the bottom. Kind of runs along the side of the curved bill here. Has an inner trim. And then, now I'm drawing the Generation 1 1980s original Optimus Prime. This is the one I grew up on. This is my favorite version of Prime. I mean, it's classic. It's super classic. It's got these parts on the side here. So I'm actually looking at a cartoon reference as well to help me understand the shapes. And then, of course, I have my 3D model here that I can use to look at and also get an idea of shapes, spacing, etc. as I tried to draw Prime in my style. It's my first time drawing Optimus Prime, if you just tuned in, or at least the first time I can recall. If I'd ever drawn him in the past, I just do not remember. That's how infrequently I draw the Transformers. But I should draw more of the Transformers, since I really enjoy Transformers. So he's got these side parts of the helmet that run down the side of his face. So we kind of mirror that, keeping in mind the turn of his head, because his face is kind of looking off to the right here. Bit of a 3/4 view. So I want to make sure these sides kind of line up as much as possible. Try to get similar widths or thickness to the sides there. I'll have to put in his eyes here in a moment. Just right now is really a lot of focus is going in to this helmet here because it's such a challenging shape, but such a great shape. It's such, I believe, such a well-designed helmet. It's just perfect for Prime. It's not too overly complicated, but it's definitely not too simple. I think all the Transformers, especially the Generation 1 characters, are such great designs, from all the Autobots, all the Decepticons. If you haven't watched, if you have Netflix, check out the documentary series, The Toys That Made Us. They do an episode on the Transformers, and it is so intriguing. It's just like, wow, I had no idea that's how the Transformers came to be. So if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I will hint that G.I. Joe has a connection to the birth of the Transformers, how the Transformers came to be. Now you're probably wondering, wait, what, how, huh? Check out that episode and you'll see the secret origin of the Transformers. And they also have a G.I. Joe episode, Star Wars, Masters of the Universe, My Little Pony, Lego. They have like 3 seasons, and each season is 4 episodes, and it's all really, really well done. So check out that series, especially if you like the Transformers. And their episodes are only about 40 minutes long. So they're not like, it's not like super long episodes. So you know, it's very digestible. All right. So I'm going to start working in his eyes here. I might have to adjust his face as we go. This is probably one of the more complicated characters, I think, we've done here for a live stream, just because of all these very graphic shapes. We have his nose that comes down to that face guard, like that face guard that goes across his jaw, kind of curves around his face, because he has no mouth, so we don't have to worry about drawing that. I want to make sure I put together there's like the top part of his nose, like the bridge, or like the brow to the bridge. So it angles down, then back towards us. As you can see, this is probably one of the many reasons, one of the few reasons, any number of reasons why I don't often draw Transformers is just how difficult the designs are. But it's a worthwhile challenge to try. I'm definitely having fun, and I figured this would be a fun time to give drawing Optimus Prime a go here. So I can adjust his chin down. I didn't use enough real estate here for his chin, because we need a nice strong jaw. He is the heroic leader of the Autobots. So I don't want too small of a jaw or chin. It needs to be strong and heroic to really capture that flavor. I really think Optimus Prime is probably one of all the different heroes out there, of all the different teams, like, you know, you have like the Justice League and the Avengers and the X-Men, all with great characters I love. I'm a huge fan of all these properties. G.I. Joe, I love G.I. Joe. I'm an 80s kid, so anything that's, from Star Wars on through even to today, I love. But I just find that Optimus Prime is my favorite, probably one of my favorites of all the leaders. I just love how they developed his leadership qualities. And I think Peter Cullen, who did the voice of Optimus Prime for the cartoons and for the movies, there's an interview where he says kind of how he came up with the voice of Optimus Prime, and it is such a beautiful story. In fact, I think I saw that on the Toys That Made Us episode. They interview him, and when I heard that story, it's like, wow, that is such a great story, and just made me appreciate Optimus Prime and Peter Cullen's role as his approach to Optimus Prime even more. Just added a whole nother layer and depth of appreciation for this character and how he leads and what makes a good leader. And so I really would have to say Optimus Prime is definitely one of my favorites. Just based off the Generation 1 cartoon. Just a great development of a character, an approach to a character. He's strong. He's not just strong and a brilliant leader and in when they have to go into battle against the Decepticons and stuff like that, but he's also, he's kind. There's like the strength of kindness, as well as the decisions he has to make. There's a bit of kindness, which I think is amazing, which comes across as strength, not weakness, which is, I think, what we need, something we could all strive towards. But he's also got, just a, gosh, what am I trying to say here? Yeah, sacrificial. He's also sacrificial. He puts himself on the front lines, right there with his fellow Autobots. He's not a stand back. He's like, he leads the charge, and I don't think he would ask any Autobot to do something that he wouldn't do himself. So that is something I really appreciate about Optimus Prime. He's pulling his weight. That's right. All right, let's get a little bit of his shoulders here. So we have a little bit of a neck. We don't see a lot of neck here, and I kind of got him hunched, so we're going to see the top of his shoulders. So, we got these big rig shoulders, so it's like just a lot of rectangles here. So I'm looking at the cartoon reference, so we kind of got the certain lines that are going to cut back and forth. You'll see a little bit of the the truck lights that are at the top of the cab, at least right there. And almost like because of the shape of his truck body, it's a little bit of almost what looks like a backpack at this angle. Just more tech that runs behind him there. All right, so I think that gets our pencils done here. This is this kind of gets things rolling that we can move into inks. I'm going to utilize my colored microns again for that animation sort of feel. So I'm going to do colored lines for each of the colored sections. So like for the blue of his helmet, I'm going to use a dark blue micron. So I only have one size dark blue micron, a 0.5. So I'll have to try to get the thicks and thins I need. Thicker on the outer perimeter, thinner for inner details. So like the main bulk of the shape is going to have a thicker line. But then like this This line here that runs down the side will be a bit thinner. And since this is a fairly small image here, I think I can get all these inorganic shapes freehand. But if I was drawing much larger than this, if this image was a bit larger, I'd probably use my drafting tools so I get that real nice, clean, graphic shape line to make it look far more robotic. But in this instance, I'm just going to kind of forego the drafting tools and hope for the best. My father was a draftsman, so he had all the drafting tools, so I kind of grew up with that, seeing my dad's drafting table and the type of stuff he did. So I was familiar with the drafting tools. Didn't understand what some of them were, like a French curve. Looked more like a Christmas sleigh, so my sisters and I would steal his French curve at Christmas time and use it, trace it out and make Christmas sleighs and then draw Christmas scenes. You've probably seen me use my French curve on other videos here, like when I am working on Wolverine's claws or something like that. Now for his ears, everything that's blue is going to get this blue line. This will really translate when we get to color. If you've seen my other Post-it note videos here recently, I've done a lot of color line hold approach to the art. It's got these little, for lack of a better term, we'll call them antenna. And we'll tackle the other side. So when drawing a character like this with this very odd-shaped helmet with very unique graphic shapes, one thing that I have to consider, especially if I go turn him to like this three-quarter view, is how do these shapes change from like both these sides are mirror images, but because I'm drawing from this angle, the way I approach this shape, I have to think the other side, like I have to reverse it almost in my head. And so the shapes look symmetrical, but we're looking at we're looking at it from different sides, which can be a really big challenge to make it look consistent, even though the changing sides is making it look different. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing of a sentence. I consider what's overlapping, because this shape overlaps this shape, so I put a little shadow there. This shape overlaps this shape. This shape overlaps this part of the shape. This part of the helmet overlaps this shape, and so it's all layering from one. Each thing is overlapping the other thing. As I've mentioned before in my videos, when I'm inking, when I'm wanting to vary my line weight, I'm thinking about one, the light source, and two, where things are in the fore, middle, and background. So oftentimes, it's not a 100% always this way rule of thumb, but it's definitely kind of where I start from, is light source. If the light is hitting a part of a character's head, body, whatever, that's going to probably have a little bit of a thinner line. The part that's further away from the light could have a thicker line to convey a subtle sense of shadow. Now, I also utilize thick and thin. The thicker the line, the closer it is to us in the foreground. The thinner the line can move things towards the background. Also, the thicker the line, the third option, rule of thumb, is the thicker the line I can utilize for the initial contour of that element, like his ear part, this shape here, then thinner lines, like on the inside, for finer detail. So those are three elements that I consider when working with my line weights. Let's see, now for the gray silver parts, we're going to use black. So I'm going to start with some black 08 for his the rest of his face here. Thicker line, because I want to, it's the contour of his jaw and chin. So that's one big shape element. I want a thicker line. 2, there's a bit more, this is a bit further away from the light source, so it's going to have a thicker line to convey a sense of shadow. And 3, a thicker line because it is more in the foreground. And we'll have the same silver for his neck. Not quite as thick. It'll still have a thick line to a degree, but it's not as close to us as the chin. So if this has a thicker line and the neck here has a little bit subtly thinner line, it creates a nice subtle difference of spatial relation of chin down to neck. Now I want to switch to a thinner micron, still using the black, the 01. Going to work on the nose here. Finer details in the face, so I want a thinner line to keep things crisp. I'm going to start to sculpt out this nose portion. And it runs down the face, and then we have his faceplate here, much like I always saw it as like, you know, like those medieval knights, their helmets, kind of how it would have that faceplate. I always saw it like that. I always saw it like a medieval knight. Then we have so this here is one plane, and then the front part. So this is like the top of his lip, of his face. I guess not really a lip, but it is a lip, like the edge of a three-dimensional shape here. You can almost hear his voice in his head. Yeah, Peter Cullen really gave Prime such a distinct voice. And one thing I loved about his, Cullen Prime's voice is that he could convey so much in the emotion of the character that even though we couldn't see his face, even though we could not see Prime smile, Peter Cullen's voice could let us know when Prime was smiling by the character's inflection. Even with the eyes, you know, they're these hexagonal blue shapes. So there's no eyelids, irises, or cornea, or pupils, but the voice just really brought home so much of the emotion that we could not see in such a robotic face. I mean, the animators did a good job in animating the character so you could get a sense of his emotion expression as well. I'm not faulting the design, but it's a robot, and robots aren't as expressive, or could be more of a challenge to make them as expressive as, say, an organic character. So I believe that the voices really brought home a lot to these characters. And I thought the voice casting was great all across the board for all the Autobots and Decepticons. They're all classic. Megatron, Soundwave, Starscream, Bumblebee, Prowl, Hound, Ironhide. Peter Cullen did the voice of Ironhide too. I love Ironhide's voice. Prime! Here come the Decepticons, Prime! He had that southern voice, and I'm from the South. I'm from Texas. So Ironhide resonated with me because, you know, he had that southern accent. I imagine either Cybertron had its own version of Texas, or Ironhide picked that up when he got here. So I'm going to use a lighter shade of blue for his eyes. Keeping in mind the hexagonal shape, which is really great. They went with kind of like this hexagon because it kind of gave us that almond shape of an organic eye, which really kind of helped bring the humanness about. So that's one aspect of the design I think was very thoughtful to give the Transformers a sense of humanity with the almost what would be almond shape of the eye. Just a little trim there. So it's almost kind of hard to see here in the footage, but this dark blue and the black almost look the same here in the footage. But when I post a shot of this to my Instagram and Twitter, you might be able to see more of the difference in the colors. But definitely looking for something subtle. So I'm going to use a dark red for the red of his body. Fan of the GoBots? You know, I'm not a fan of the GoBots. I remember when they came out, and I just think it just didn't hit the mark for me like the Transformers did. I just think that the toy line itself, I appreciate what Tonka tried to do, but the complexity of the GoBots just didn't match what you could get from most of the Transformers. I mean, the Transformers had some smaller characters like the Bumblebee, Brawn, Huffer, those types of characters. But when you watch the Toys That Made Us, you'll learn why there were different sized Transformer toys, like why there were little tiny cars that were technically out of proportion to the giant, you know, Mack truck or larger cars. It's like, how come some are bigger and some are small? It explains how that came to be. And then just cartoon-wise, I just really enjoyed the animation style of the Transformers over the GoBots. So yeah, it's just my personal preference. I don't mean to slight the GoBots in any way. It's just, as a kid, what resonated with me. And I think Transformers just really got there. And I think that's why we still see Transformers nowadays more so. I mean, there's only been one GoBots cartoon series, and that was the one from the early 1980s. GoBots did not really continue, you know? So I think there's just something about the Transformers that transcended the 1980s, which I feel that it seems like the GoBots just didn't quite get there. But I thought the GoBots had some interesting character concepts, names, like Psych Hill was a cool name. The leader of the enemy, or the bad GoBots. Leader 1 I thought was pretty cool, but Prime was definitely my homeboy. So some dark red there for the body. So now I'm just going to let that dry here a little bit while I put my microns, cap them back and put them away here. And then we'll come in and we will erase. Have I read the IDW Transformers comics? I read some of them. I probably read more of the Marvel Transformer comics back in the day. But yeah, I did read some of them. I read the Dreamwave ones for sure, and I have read. I'm pretty sure I've read some of the IDWs, but I haven't read all of them. I definitely haven't kept up with it. Like, read the series regularly. So I'm using my kneaded art gum eraser here to remove all of the graphite And now we can start working on color. Let's tackle his helmet first, and we're going to work dark to light. So right now I'm going to start with some B04. I'm going to consider my light source coming from above. So the darker areas will be on the opposite side. I'm also considering the shape of things, like the curvature of different aspects of his helmet, as well as what is overlapping. So see some more graphite I need to get rid of. Otherwise, if I color over it with micron, or with the Copic markers, it will lock it in. Like the pencil lines will get trapped underneath the Copic marker, and you can't really, or at least from my experience, you can't get it to erase away then. It's kind of trapped underneath. All right, I like that B4, but I think I want to go a little bit darker to start off with. So I'm going to come in with some B05. Just start adding some even darker shade blue to some of these areas here. Then come back with this B04. Use whatever coloring tools you have. Use whatever shades you have to work with. That's totally cool. So I'm leaving these parts of his helmet open for lighter color because the light would be kind of hitting there a bit more, just like right there on that top part. Let's try some B02. When you still want to keep some of the blue of the paper as like a highlight here on Prime's helmet. So I'm keeping that in mind too. So oftentimes I work from dark to light, or I work mid-range and then add dark and light tones. Amongst the blues. So actually I want to put a little bit of blue right up there at the top. Okay. Oh, and then we have the blue of his eyes. Definitely want some light blue here, so I'm going to use a little bit of this blue too as my quote-unquote dark shade of blue. Then come in with some B01 for the lighter shade. Now, let's see, I want to deepen up some of these blues here a little bit, kind of give them a bit of a darker tone. So I'm going to change blue families and go to the B1 family. So I'm just going to drop in a little B12. Just to kind of change the value of the blue a little bit. Actually, I want to come in with a little B14. Kind of texturize things a little bit here. Always keeping in mind the shape. These are some really funky shapes, so it can be a bit of a challenge, but the curve, the angles, even with the curves of the shape of his helmet, it's like, which direction is it curving? How does the plane change as it curves around? How do I want to translate these shapes? Not easy. Definitely not easy. But by approaching and tackling the challenge, I can hopefully stand to learn. and understand better. And I can learn from my mistakes. Coming with some B01, just to that lightest shade of blue, a very light shade of blue, not the lightest I have, but a very light, to kind of blend all these different shades of blue together for some smoother transition. But yeah, making mistakes is a great opportunity to learn. So sometimes we have to just kind of get in there, get our hands dirty, just figure it out. It's like, okay, if it doesn't work out, that's fine. That's all right. If the drawing gets jacked up because I made the shapes wrong, that's all right. I can study it, learn from it. How can I make my shapes more accurate the next time? So that's why I'm a big proponent of trial and error. Get in there, try, fail, learn, try again. So let's start bringing in some grays here. I'm going to use some cool grays here initially. Some cool gray 4. I'm going to use this for the more shadowy parts under his eyes. And down the side of his nose. Stuff underneath this lip of the helmet here. Definitely underneath the neck, or under the chin here, onto the neck. A little bit underneath where that part of the helmet overlaps. Part on that side. Maybe more shadow or darker gray over on this side. So that was some cool gray 4. Now I'm going to go to the cool gray 2. Just fill in that whole side of his face. Because I want to try to create a 3-dimensional vibe. There's a little shadow here on the sides, but as we move towards the center of his faceplate here, the light is hitting right here on this lip and right here on his nose, so there won't be as much shadow right here or here, and leaving some open area here too. Can help me start conveying that 3-dimensional shape. Maybe put a little bit of this cool gray through his eyes there to kind of shape out the eye a bit right there. I'm going to come in with some cool gray 1. Very, very light shade of cool gray. Oh yeah, and I forgot, this part needs to be gray too. So we're going to repeat the process with cool gray 4. Kind of a little further down here. A little bit of a shadow on each chunk of vent. I'm going to call those vents, or vent lines for lack of a better term. So cool gray 4 to the cool gray 2. Just working dark from the bottom up to light up here, and then the cool gray 1. Now his whole face and faceplate here are silver, so I'm just really going to, I don't have to leave a lot of the blue as a highlight if I don't want to. I'm going to come in with a bit of a darker gray. I'm going to come in with some cool gray 5 to really sculpt in some heavier shadows. Because I see I can go a little bit darker in some areas here. If I go darker around his eyes, the blue of his eyes are going to pop a bit more. Because the darkness around them is going to make that blue appear to be lighter and brighter. Maybe put a little bit of a darker line right through there to overlap that part of his helmet off of his face. Definitely want a darker shadow underneath that chin. On that side of the nose. Here in the corner. Maybe just a little bit right here, just to give a little more eye candy. Just teeny tiny. All right. So he's coming along pretty well, pretty quickly. Definitely having a lot of fun. Hope you're having fun too. Now let's come in with the reds of his shoulders. So I'm going to start with R27. And so these are some pretty flat areas to be working with here. So I'm just kind of going to go kind of a traditional red here and then fade to a lighter red. Definitely darker red where his head overlaps his shoulders. And then we're going to go to the R24. And then let's try a little R85. I'm definitely going to want to come in. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit of orange to this as well to kind of warm it up. So R12. Let that kind of pink and that orange kind of merge together as it blends to the red. Just a little experiment there. Now let's take some cool gray. I'm going to start with a cool gray 4. We're going to start casting some shadow from his head over his shoulders. So the light source is kind of coming from this direction, so we're going to have more of his head casting a shadow here on the opposite side. So we can get a little bit of a longer shadow coming this way. Can just kind of feather it out there. In fact, I need to actually put some of this cool gray in the blue parts of his helmet as well. Get a little bit of shadow under to separate the back of his shoulders with this little kind of backpack chunk of tech behind him. And all those places I was putting the dark blue, I just want to drop a little cool gray, this cool gray 4 in there to sculpt shadow, give him some more realistic shadow, kind of bring it all home. It's fun seeing all of your comments here with Prime's classic quotes. Can't see them all, or I missed them all because I'm so focused on the art. I hope someone has said Autobots roll out. Okay, I think that will take care of his... Actually, no, you know what? I want to go a little bit darker. I want to go a little bit darker right here on this side of his head here. I want to create more depth. So I'm going to the cool gray 5. I want there to be more contrast, a little bit more gray underneath, right here underneath this part of the helmet. I just really want to create different, more distinct shapes, shadow shapes. I want a little darker here underneath the eyes. So this is why I like to work, if I'm not certain of what shade to use for shadow, start light because you can always go darker. Just think of it like getting a haircut. When they ask, is this short enough? Then you can always take off more hair, but they can't put the hair back on. That's what my stylist always says. She goes, I'll start short, but then, or I'll start, I'll just take a little bit off, and then I can always take off more if you want. She goes, I just can't put the hair back on. So it's like the same, that's my approach when it comes to shadows here. If I'm not quite sure, just go light to medium range because I can always make it go darker. I just can't really easily make it lighter. So if I drop a little more of this cool gray 5 into his helmet here, can kind of create some more distinct shapes in the shadows, round them out a little bit more, create more eye candy for the viewer, more shapes for them to look at. Even if it's subtle, even if they don't realize, you know, all the subtleties of the shapes, they're seeing it and their eye is just taking it all in the moment. Little dark shadow through the seams here can help convey a little more detail, even if it's just simple open shapes here, comparatively. All right, so let's add a little bit of something here to the background, give it a little bit, maybe just a nice light fade. I'm going to try some warm grays. I rarely do this, but I think because, yeah, well, we got a lot of cool colors here, but this is a big chunk of warm, so now I'm rethinking that. Warm might be giving us too much warm through here. Or I could do a mix of both. What if I started warm and faded down to cool gray? I haven't done anything like that in a while. Let's experiment with that. So now let's get, so I'm going to start with a warm gray 6. I'm going to power it down to a warm gray 4. Just going over that 6 and a little further down so it all starts to blend in a semi-smooth transition depending on how much saturation of ink I give the situation. Now we're going to kick it to a neutral gray. You're probably saying, Todd, this is madness. Stop. No, I dare not. Now some neutral gray 3, creating a whole different flavor of fade, letting the neutrals and the warm grays merge. I know, it's mad science, but I'm doing it for peaceful purposes. Some warm to neutral, a whole new flavor that we don't often get to see in my post-it note fades. And then some neutral gray 2, just to blend it out. So we're starting warm going to cool as this is cool going to warm. See what I did there? Warm to cool background, cool to warm foreground. You Got the Touch. Oh my gosh, I love those Stan Bush songs from the motion picture. You Got the Touch and Dare. Oh man, those are in heavy rotation on my 80s playlist. Love those. I actually got to meet Stan Bush at San Diego Comic-Con. I was actually looking for the Mystery Science Theater cast, the Sci-Fi Channel cast, Mike Nelson, Kevin Murphy, Bill Corbett, and I passed by Stan Bush's booth up there in the sales pavilion. This is probably about 10 years ago. And actually, the Mystery Science Theater cast was now the Riff Tracks cast. But anyhow, that's neither here nor there. But I passed Stan Bush's booth, and it's like he had CDs for sale, so I picked one up, chatted with him, and took a photo with him. Really super nice guy. Stan Bush, great guy. Definitely has those 2 songs from the Transformers motion picture soundtrack. Probably the best thing to come out of those movies, in my opinion. That movie is controversial for us kids of the 1980s because it started off great, but then they made a mistake, I think, and so many of us, because they just didn't know. And you know what? That's kind of I'm not going to say too much because they addressed this. They addressed the motion picture in the Toys That Made Us Transformers episode on Netflix. So I'm just going to let y'all discover what they were thinking at that time if you don't know why they went the direction they did with the movie. So yeah, I love the first part of that movie, for sure. I mean, the rest of the movie is well done, but the first part is what really, really had me excited as a kid. So I'm using the Uniball Signo white gel pen, and just going to put an outline around the perimeter of Prime to give him a pop off of the background. Actually, I'm going to give his helmet a little more pop off his shoulder. So I'm actually going to extend this down to portions of his helmet. Not all the way down, but just a little bit so we have 3 layers here. Head, shoulder, and background delineation with the white outline. Just a little bit more, just coming right up to about there and let it fade out. I want a little more vibrancy in his eyes, so I'm going to come in with some blue too. Just put a little more color in there. And just going to put a little bit of some highlights in there. Just like that. Just to give his eye a little bit of spark. And then I can now just put my signature on here. We'll just put it right here on his shoulder with a black micron, the 01. Just drop in my last name. And today's date, which is, I believe, the 13th, right? Is that right, gang? Yes, the 13th of April. 2020. Boom! Optimus Prime. On a blue Post-it note. So, not too shabby for my first time drawing Optimus Prime. He's recognizable. I think people would recognize, hey, that's Optimus Prime. And that's at least step 1 of moving forward with accepting this challenge, was try to at least get recognizable. So yeah, let's flip the camera around and we can wrap up today's live stream. Let me adjust here. Let's flip everything around. Boop. Hey gang. Let me clip back into the rig. There we go. All right. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Ooh, is rig still popping along there a little bit. So thanks so much for hanging out. This was a lot of fun. We'll have a shot of Prime on my Instagram, Twitter, Art of Todd Nauck, Facebook. All the links are in my video description below, and I will have a direct link to this illustration in the video description below here in a little bit. So thanks so much for drawing along with me. I hope you had fun. If you share yours on Instagram, make sure you hashtag it, hashtag #PostItPopArt and tag my account. At Todd Nauck on Instagram so I can see it. And you can do the same on the other social media, but it seems like Instagram is where most people post theirs. And that's totally cool. But feel free, post it wherever you want, for sure. For sure. If you liked this video, please leave me a thumbs up. I appreciate that support. If you're watching on replay, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. For all you live viewers, thanks for all the comments and posts and questions here during the live stream. I appreciate you hanging out with me here in real time. But replayers, you're also valuable as well. Thanks for watching. Hit this video on replay. Feel free to share this video. Share the replay with any Transformer fans you might know that might enjoy seeing this. So yeah, please feel free to share the video. I appreciate that big time. That helps my channel a lot when you share my videos. And also, if you just discovered me and you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, what are we waiting for? Let's just go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It's just right there. And then you can tap the bell to set your notifications to alert you in whatever way you need to be alerted for when I schedule new art live streams and post new art videos. I'm uploading some of my Instagram live streams. Hopefully you saw my Jim Halpert from The Office art live stream from my 6 fan arts challenge entry I did about a week or so ago. I'm starting to upload those. The Dr. Teeth from the Muppets, that's coming up next to the Instagram live here. So keep an eye out for that Instagram live stream being uploaded to my channel here in the near future. And then the others as well, except for April O'Neil, but I explained that in the Jim Halpert video. So make sure you watch the Jim Halpert video and share that if you know of any other Office fans or John Krasinski fans who might like to see that. So gang, enough of all the jibba jabba here. It's always so good to see you, to chat with you and hang out with you. I hope you're doing well during this COVID-19 season. Hopefully you're staying well, staying healthy, staying safe. do be sure to use proper techniques, precautions in your daily life, especially keeping the hands washed. And yeah, hopefully we can get past this COVID-19 thing soon and back to normal, or as normal as possible. So be kind to those you encounter. Remember, we're all going through this together. So kindness, grace, mercy, not unlike the values we learned from Optimus Prime, can go a long way. Kindness, mercy, grace, and that will help us all get through this and manage all these feelings and emotions. It's a challenge. But we can all get there because, you know, sometimes you got to tackle a challenge to see what you might learn and what might develop and how can you grow your skills to another level. Gang, thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I definitely will see you tomorrow morning for the Tuesday, April 14th, Post-it Pop Art live stream. Thanks for hanging out. I'm Todd Nauck. Keep on drawing. Keep having fun. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.